Howdy, and thank you for joining us for this special edition of the Virtual Book Festival, recorded on May 27th, 2020, produced by Book Festival Network and Dear Texas, Dear Indy. This show is sponsored by Authors Marketing Guild. We're a membership-owned company that helps authors learn how to market and sell themselves. Also by indielector.store, the only bookstore that offers up to 80% of its sales to authors directly. And produced by Dear Indy and Dear Texas, where we drop everything and read both Texas and Indy authors. We would like to introduce Earney Lee to our audience.
Hey, how are you doing? How's everybody?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being with us.
Well,
You have also won an award this recently that's being announced shortly. Congratulations on that. You want to tell us about it?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very fortunate. I appreciate that. And thank you for hosting this virtual book fair. We've certainly missed being able to get out with the public and meet our readers and talk about our books. And this is an excellent opportunity to do it. In fact, it might be something worth continuing even after we're able to get out, because a lot of folks can't travel. So you can put it on YouTube like you're doing today. Maybe a lot more people can see it. I'm Earney Lee. I live in Canyon Lake, Texas. And no, that's not Canyon Lake behind me. We don't have alligators, crocodiles in Canyon Lake. But I like to write about them, and I've done quite well with the two books I've written about Aqua. Aquasaurus is a huge prehistoric crocodile that was discovered in a cave called Honey Creek Cave by some college cave explorers. And a lot of the scenes and a lot of the locations in my book actually exist around San Antonio. And a lot of people enjoy reading about things in this area, places that they have actually been before. And so almost everything in the book comes from around San Antonio area, north of San Antonio, except for the crocodile. And so as the boys from the college are in the cave, exploring the cave, a fracker creates an earthquake, and the boys are trapped in the cave with the giant 40-foot crocodile. And they're trying to get out of there. Meanwhile, this group of college kids are high adventure kids. They rock climb, they're mountain climbers, they're mountain bikers, they hike, and of course explore caves. So their girlfriends are professional rock climbers, and they have to go and rescue them. And so getting into the cave was a problem, because the main heroine is afraid of the dark. But she's an excellent mountain climber and uses her skills to rescue her boyfriend. And so they all come out of the cave. Unfortunately, the crocodile escapes, and the earthquake cracks the dam on the San Antonio River, and the crocodile is washed down to the Gulf. And despite the fact that the Air Force and the Army are trying to capture it, it escapes into the Gulf of Mexico. And so that's the end of the first book. And then the second book we wrote was called The Search for Aquasaurus. And it was a continuation of the story about the same crocodile and the same group of young people that are going to try to capture it, or to try to prevent it from creating any more damage. This crocodile is going along the coast, attacking shrimp boats and people on the beach and spring breakers down on South Padre Island. And so because the main character's father was actually the fracker that created the earthquake, she feels some sort of responsibility to try to do something about this wild crocodile that's swimming along the coast and actually causing a lot of damage. And so she inherits a boat, an airplane, and a casa down in Mexico. And so she uses those resources to try to trap and find this crocodile. Well, the professor in the first book that had identified the crocodile and actually went into the cave to try to help them capture it or at least get images of it, has a different idea. He wants to save the crocodile from being destroyed, and so he gets his group together, and together these two opposing forces have gone down into Mexico to try to locate this crocodile. One to get rid of it and eliminate it as a threat. The other one to capture it and study it for science. And so that sets up the conflict for the second book. I won't give you a spoiler about how it turns out, but I will guarantee that when they do locate the crocodile, they certainly got more than they bargained for. And so it's a fun book. It's an adventure book. We have a lot of young readers. I go to a lot of Comic-Con. And when I go to Corpus, I sell out almost every time I go. They like reading about that giant crocodile, and I like telling the story. And so we have a lot of fun. We do a lot of book shows. We go to the military bases, and we have missed doing all of that. And looking forward to this fall, and hoping that we can get back out on the road again. The second novel that I wrote was called Him, and Him is a story based on a true story. In 1885, there was a midnight stalker killer running the streets of Austin, Texas. He was known as the Servant Girl Annihilator. Nobody knew who he was. There were a lot of suspects. A lot of people were arrested and interrogated. And some were even brought to trial. But one of the suspects caught my attention was a Malaysian sailor who worked on the ships and was in Austin at that time. And the day that he arrived, the murders, when he arrived, the murders began. And the murders actually stopped the day he left. And he told folks that he was going to go back to the ships and try to work his way over to England. And so 2 years later, the famous Jack the Ripper killings began. And I discovered on the internet, a lot of folks out there believed that it was the same guy. There was a sailor in the London Times that was interviewed on the docks of Whitechapel, and he said that one of his shipmates was a man named Maurice, was a Malaysian sailor cook, and that he had gotten cheated there on the docks and threatened to kill all the prostitutes in London until he got his revenge. And so it was just very similar types of murders, and the name was the same. He used the name Maurice in Austin as well. And so I thought it made a good story. And so I started wondering why he was there, how he got there, where he came from, where he went, and wrote this book called Him, based upon that story. And the reason it's called Him is because Maurice is innocent. And only Maurice knows who the killer is. It's a lifelong friend and traveling companion that stayed with them. And he's actually afraid of him, afraid that this killer will turn on him if he turns him in. And so the question is, how far will Maurice go to stop the bloodshed? And so we've done very well with the book, and they're happy to display it at all the places we go to. It's been very popular. I actually got an interview on NPR because of this book, because in my research, I found out some evidence that had never been written about. And this Austin Servant Girls Annihilator has been written about a lot, especially in Texas Monthly. But I discovered some evidence that no one had ever thought about. One, I didn't know what he had used to put a hole through their head, and almost all the victims in Austin had a hole drilled right through their temple or their head all the way through it. there was some speculation that it might have been ice pick, or it may have been a, a nail, or a stake of some sort. And so I took a look at uh, the autopsy reports from the actual victims, and I discovered that it was the exact fit for a late 19th century Marlinspike. And the Marlinspike, if you don't know, is about a foot long, weighs about almost a pound, comes down to a sharp point, has a eye at the end of it, and a head like a nail on the bottom of it. And it would be a perfect fit for what was described in some of the autopsy reports. And as a sailor, Maurice would have had one of those. The sailors use them to work knots and nets and things like that. And it's a very handy piece to use on a ship. Then that left the question as to why. And so I researched Malaysian folklore, and I found out that uh, the Southeast Asians have their folk uh, critters just like we do, like vampires and werewolves. And if you were going to kill a European werewolf or vampire, you would do stake through the heart. And what they do in Malaysia is a stake through the head. So I put two and two together, came up with five, and decided that was my murder victim, and that was my murder weapon, and my culprit. So I wrote the book around those two premises, and it has done quite well. I've been real happy with it. It's a pretty gruesome book, and I told my wife I would probably never write another serial killer book, but I may have to go back on that word because I'm working on a book now uh, called Cosplay. As I mentioned, I go to a lot of Comic Cons, and if you've never been to a Comic Con, you already go because it's quite an adventure. There's thousands of people there, all dressed up in different comic book hero costumes, and we were coming back from the Corpus Comic Con one time, and I told Donna, that'd make a perfect setting for a murder mystery because all the suspects are in costume, they're in disguise. So I started working on that idea, and so it's called Cosplay: The Comic Con Killer. Probably be out late this summer. About halfway through with it right now. It features uh, a young woman detective, which is kind of a stretch for me to write about women, but she, of course, is a police officer, went through the academy and became a police patrolman, and goes through a lot of, um, so we say, harassment and male dominant kind of behavior on the part of the other police officers. And so she's having to overcome all of this. She's brilliant. She passes the detective exam in 2 years, which nobody had ever done. And a tough old homicide detective has to take her on against his will. And she comes up with the idea that somehow these murders are connected to Comic Con. Well, the lieutenant in charge of her division doesn't even know what a Comic Con is, has no idea of the game culture, has no idea that people get so engrossed in these games that they actually begin to believe that they are the characters they're portraying. And so we have a character who fancies himself to be a murderer, a mass murderer, who's assassin out of one of the games. And so we're having a lot of fun with it. It's coming together right well, and I'm looking forward to getting it out this summer. Thank y'all for listening. I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Well, thank you for being with us, Ernie. We appreciate that as well. And real quickly, if you want to give everybody your web address one more time.
You bet. You can buy my books through the Indie Lector. You can buy them on Amazon, or you can buy them directly from me at aimhighbooks.com. That's AIM-HI books.com. And if you buy them from there, I can sign them. And I believe I can sign them from the Indie Lector as well. Can I? I think I have fulfillment. And so I'll be glad to sign those for you if you let me know how you want them signed, and I'll be looking forward to hearing from all of you.
Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Welcome to IndieLector.store, an online bookstore where the discriminating reader can find award-winning books. IndieLector.store is not a big corporation, so we can give up to 80% of the sales directly to the author. Help us support them by buying a great book at IndieLector.store. The 5th Annual Authors Marketing Event. 2 days of live seminars in marketing for authors. The only organization that certifies authors in marketing. Live and free to the first 100 authors registered. Sponsored by Bubblish, empowering entrepreneurs, and Indie Lector Store, paying authors for their fair share. Head to www.2020.authorsmarketingguild.com today.